Hi guys, today we're going to be making our December daily, and I'm even going to use the box the stuff comes in from Simon Says Stamp. This unfortunately is not the box that my kit comes in because my kit's not here yet, but I'm going to use one of my old boxes, and this is a great way to recycle some of these gorgeous boxes that you get and can't find anything to do with. So we're just going to take that away, and we're going to cut two 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 panels, two 6 1/4 by 2-inch panels, and one 3 by 6 1/4. And this is going to make the cover of your book. So go ahead and set that aside. And now we want to make basically like you did in school when you had to cover your books with like a paper bag. We're going to do the same thing using craft cardstock. So you're going to cut two pieces, 7 1/2 by 11, and you're going to take your score tape, and just like I do throughout this entire book, you're going to burnish down your score tape. Whenever we use score tape, we're going to burnish it down because we want it to stick. We do not want it to move at all. I'm going to use my mat to line up my pieces, but I'm just going to adhere one 7 1/2 by 11 to the other 7 1/2 by 11, and I'm going to burnish it down right on top of that score tape. And this is our cover. Now I'm just going to line up my pieces inside. And each one of these pieces is going to line up in this configuration right here. It's going to be the 6 1/4, then a 2-inch, then a 6 1/4, then a 2-inch, then a 3-inch, and you're going to leave a little tiny space in between each. Now, all you need is a little bit of tape on the back side of each one of these pieces. You don't have to be super crazy about adhering it. And you're going to just kind of line it up to where you kind of have an even amount of craft cardstock around the edges of your book. So the only reason why we're putting any tape on the back of this is just so it doesn't slide around, and it makes it easier for you to cover it with the craft cardstock. So nothing exciting there. I'm going to trim down this edge because I want the whole thing to be even all the way around. And then I'm going to take my score tape and I'm going to line all the way around the edges. So you're going to see me just put it around the outside edge of each one of the craft pieces and burnish it down. I do the two long edges first, and then I do the two short sides. Now here's my first mistake on the video. We're going to pull up our sides to kind of tell the paper where we want it to go, and then here, don't do this. I forgot to cut my corners off. So go back. Before you take your adhesive back off your adhesive, or whatever that's called, you want to trim down your corners. So just, it doesn't have to be perfect because this is literally going to get covered up. It's just to make it easier to fold them over. So now you're going to take your first side and you're going to fold it down. And the reason why I had my fingers all splayed out like that was just to kind of get as much of it over as possible all at once, and then that way it would be no bubbles in between. So just like that, you see how I have my fingers splayed out as far as I can to try to grab as much paper and have it come over all at the same time. Now we're going to put some tape on the edges and do the exact same thing. Now this is the basic book cover that you would do for any size book that you were going to make. So it doesn't matter what configuration, how big, how small, this is how I make my books. It makes for a nice, hard, sturdy surface to put your book together. And so once I finish off this other side, we'll start working on the page holder, which is going to attach to the spine of your book. So here's the way that our book is going to lay out, just like this. We have our covers and our spine and everything ready to go. Now we're going to grab the scoreboard, and this is 6 inches by 11 inches, and we're going to score it. The very first line is at 1/4, and then we're going to go 1/2 inch from that, another 1/2 inch from that, and 1/4. And we're just going to repeat that pattern all the way across until we have enough to make 5 pages, a place for 5 pages to attach. So you might as well just go all the way across. I'm counting right there to see where it's going to end for me, because I'm only putting 5 pages in mine. You could add more pages to yours if you wanted to, but you're going to have to reconfigure your spine size because the spine that I have is configured for 5 pages. So the more pages you add, the larger your spine needs to be. So here I'm going to show you how to fold it. We have what we call hills and valleys. So the very first 1/4 of an inch section right there is the valley, and then this 1/2 inch section that I pinched together is the hill. The hill is where the page attaches to. The valley attaches to the spine. Now in between each one of these hills is your 1/4 inch score lines, and that 1/4 inch score line is the exact size, see right there, of how much space you have in between each one of your pages. Depending on how chunky your pages are going to be depends on the size of your valley. So for me, I made them a 1/4 of an inch. If you plan on making a really chunky album, you're going to want those to be a little bit bigger. And again, you're going to have to reconfigure your spine to the right size. So once you have all of your hills put together, you're going to turn it over, and then you're going to put tape on the inside of each one of your hills. And the hills are, again, it's the 1/2 inch scored sections, not the 1/4 inch, but the 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to put some tape in between each one, pull off the backing, and then I'm going to use my tool to kind of burnish it down to make sure that they're together, and I'm just going to put each one of those hills together. And I'm just going to show you as I go along. You'll see that nice little 1/4 of an inch section in between. That's what's going to attach to your spine on the other side. So once this is completely put together, there it is. You've got all of your pages. So I've got enough there for 5 pages with a 1/4 of an inch in between each one. Now you're going to turn it over, and I'm going to put score tape on every single one of those 1/4 of an inch sections. It just so happens that that tape is a 1/4 of an inch, so it works out perfectly. And I'm going to cover the entire page holder with score tape. And then once this is done, and there I go off the screen because I don't even realize that I'm moving across the desk as I'm doing this. I'm just going to burnish it all down to make sure that the score tape is on there nice and tight. And there it is, and that's going to set off to the side. Now I want to cover the inside of my book, basically because I don't want to see any of those edges. So I'm going to line up, I cut each piece of craft cardstock is the same size as the cardboard underneath. And I'm just going to cover, you don't want to cover up your seams, which is that in between of each one of your cardboard pieces, because that's where your book is gonna, that's where your pages open and close. So you don't want to cover those. So you just want to make sure to attach it in between your little openings there. And I'm just going to continue covering this up. And somehow I managed to cut a couple of them wrong, so I had to go and recut. The craft cardstock that I'm using is nothing special. It's literally, I think, the cheapest stuff I could find at Michael's. And I just bought I think there's like 50 sheets in a pack. It's not super important for it to be thick, because if you get it to be too thick, then your book is going to have trouble, I think, opening and closing the thicker you get. So this is perfect. So there's the inside all done. And now we're going to use some of the paper that we bought, or I bought. And you're going to do the same with yours. So depending on if you want to do like as many layers as I do, I love layers. Everybody who watches my videos knows I love layers. So I'm going to start cutting a piece of the coordinating cardstock that I ordered. And I'm going to make the first layer in the cardstock and the second layer in the pattern paper. So my first, I believe I did this 6 by 6, or it might even be 6 1/8 by 6. No, it's 6 1/8 by 6 1/8, because each page here is 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. So I did just slightly less. So it's 6 1/8 by 6 1/8. The red is going to be on the spines, and the blue is going to be on the bigger pages. So we're just going to cut all those to fit, and like I said, just slightly smaller than the size of the book. So if you're making a different size book and you want to do layers, I think this is the nicest way to do it, because you can see the craft just around the edges, but it's not so much so that it takes away from the rest of the pattern paper. And then because your pattern paper is 6 by 6. On your big pages here, you won't even need to cut it down. You'll just place the exact 6 by 6 paper on each one of your bigger, the 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 sections. So I'm just going to attach these down. And the reason why I'm putting these down now during this phase of making the book is because we want to attach the spine. And you are going to be attaching the spine to patterned paper. So I'm placing down my bases first so that my page holder can attach right on top of that. So hopefully very, very soon my kit will show up and then we can start decorating, because by the end of this video you guys will have your books all ready to go, and now we just need the fun bits to start putting it together. And I'm super excited to show you what this cover is going to look like. It's going to be so awesome. I'm so excited to have the designer from October Afternoon making these papers, because I absolutely love his illustrations, and this is just the perfect paper for me. So now I'm going to look for a pattern that I want to use in the spine. Since this is basically going to be covered, you're not going to see a whole lot of it. I don't want to take any of the pages that I really love. So something that I don't mind covering up, like right now I'm showing you all the fabulous ones that I'm not going to use for this because I have other plans for them. However, the Christmas trees, I really like this paper, don't get me wrong, but I think that the Christmas trees are going to be really good for the 2-inch by 6-inch, 6 1/4 inch sections. So I'm just going to trim that down. And then I'm going to trim them down to the other way, so that way they'll sit right in the middle of the red cardstock. And I'm going to attach them down. I already have my ideas for how I'm going to decorate the inside of the other one, because it's going to look fabulous. Okay, so now we're going to attach the page holder. So you can do it any way you want. I do it one at a time, only because I want to make sure that each one gets down straight and it's right where I want it to be. So you see how I have this lined up? I have it lined up so it fits perfectly on a 2-inch base. If you wanted your pages to be further apart, you would have to adjust that section of your book right there. So a 2-inch spine wouldn't work if you wanted to say a 3/4 of an inch or a 1/2 inch in between each one of your pages. That would be a really big book. So I'm just taking the tape off one at a time and laying them down to make sure that they're nice and even and straight. And then there it is. So there's your page holder is down. I'm just training it to go back and forth, and there's for 5 pages. Now we're going to work on the pages. So here we are going to make 5 of these 6 by 11, and you're going to score them right in half at 5 1/2. So once you've scored it, that is your page. Each one of my pages is going to have a pocket in the top, just like that. So I'm going to show you how to easily make a pocket page without having to do anything fancy. You're just going to take your score tape, put it on either side of the inside of your page, just like I'm doing here. And like I said, every time I use score tape, I burnish it. These are the things that are important sections. I don't use score tape everywhere because score tape is expensive. I only use it where it's important. So if I'm using it, that's probably a good place for you to put it as well, just so that you can make sure that your pages don't fall out of your book. So if you're not using a good, strong adhesive, it's a good possibility your pages will come out, especially when you start really adding a lot of stuff to your pages. So don't line your page up based on your page holder. Line your page up based on your book. So that way, see how my edges are nice and straight all the way around? If you start adhering it based on your page holder, you may end up with some very crooked pages. So there it is. That's how you make a simple pocket page. So now it's open on the top and closed on the bottom, and now we have a place to put some stuff. Now I'm just going to kind of quickly go through the rest of them. If you notice your pages, because this is cheap craft cardstock from like Michaels, and they're not always straight. So if you notice when you score your paper and you fold it together, it's not straight, you're going to want to take it and just kind of trim it just a little bit to make sure that all of your stuff is straight, or else that's another reason why your pages will start going all wonky and sideways, and you don't want to do that. So you'll see every time I score it and fold it over, I'm looking at it, I'm flipping it around to make sure that it's even on all the sides, and then I'm putting my score tape on either edge, burnishing it all down. And then I'm just going to put my, so I'm using, you can't see it off to the side, but I put my ATG gun, and that's the ATG tape on the bottom there. Now I'm lining it up with the other page so it's straight. And there's pocket page number 2. And we're just going to run through all of these. So each one of these pages for me, you'll see here pretty soon because I'll show you, I'm going to have a little like page that pulls out of the top. And for me, I get the Tonic Studios craft kit every month, and this month, the one that just came, has these dies in it to make the tab tops, so like for file folders, and that's what I used on the top of my pieces that are going to go inside my pockets. Now if you don't have that, or you don't have something similar to that, you can just as easily take the pages that I'm going to put on the inside, and I'll show you that in a minute, and you can just snip the corners, punch a hole in the top, and turn it into that kind of a tag. So it can be a tag top, it can be you could do something decorative up there. If you've got a punch, you could do all kinds of stuff. So here's where I'm going to show you how to make your inner sections right here. So cut 5 of these. They're 6 inches tall by 5 inches wide, and that's the piece. 3 of them came in the Tonic kit, and they're all different, you know, one right, left, and middle. And that's what I used on my cardstock for the tops. And they just fit right there in the pockets perfectly. And now I'm going to show you how to make your pages that attach to each one of your pockets. Super simple, and once they're decorated, it's going to look fabulous. So here, you're going to want to make 5 of these as well. And these are going to be 7.5 inches tall by 11 inches wide, and you're going to score right there. I'm showing you that's the 2 inch, that's the 5 inch, and that's the 10 1/4 inch. And that's where you're going to score your paper. You're also going to make 5 of these, and these are 5 inches by 4 5/8, and this is where they're going to attach, right there on the side. First thing we're going to do is we're going to make the tab that fits into the pocket. So we're going to cut right where I'm showing you. Try to be straight because these are your actual pages. And now I'm going to use some score tape. Again, this is one of those kind of important places where you don't want it to fall off. And I use my mat to line it up, and I'm just going to place that right along the side. So this makes a trifold, just like that. Now, if that page that you attached is a little bit long, because that's the inside part, and I'll show you right now. See how it's a little bit long? I'm just going to take my trimmer, and I'm just going to cut off like a little sliver, like 1/8 of an inch off of there, and there you go. That way when I close it, I've got some room on either side so that it won't bunch up. Now I'm going to round my corners because that's what I want for mine, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. And I'm going to place it inside my pocket. Get my book out. Now this is where it's going to go, inside, so inside of where you made your little opening for your pocket. If you notice, your tape is kind of on that side there. That's where you attached it to your binder, so you're going to need to trim down that side, just like I did. and that way it'll fit inside of there, and you can slide it to be right dead center of your page without worrying about it not, about it hitting that taped edge. So you're going to place the tape on the inside edge of it, not the outside, the inside, because remember you have your tag that you're going to slide in there behind that, so you don't want that to be attached to the wrong side of your page. And then you're going to push it down, burnish it to make sure it's stuck really good, and there it is. And that is how you attach each one of them. You're going to make 5 in total. And then your tag is going to go in right behind it for each page, and there it is. So there it is finished. All of the pages are attached. All of the tags are in the pockets. And now we're going to work on the cover. Now I'm going to show you, we're going to use magnets. This is what I get from Michaels. They're the super strong magnets. But before I show you where I'm going to put my magnets, I'm going to show you a couple of examples of places where you can put them. This is another book that I made, and as you can see, where the magnet is on this one is the 2 edges to make it attach, so that you have a full 6x6 top. That way you can decorate the entire top page with whatever it is that you want. Or this is the way we just made our book right now, where we have the 3-inch and then the 6-inch side. So you can either do it like this, where you can see, you just take your scene and kind of make it between the 2 pages, a full page like this. Or what I'm going to do is I want to cover the entire front. So instead of like that, it's going to be like that. So my magnets are going to go on the other side. And I'm going to show you how to attach the magnets to where they're flat and in a good position. So here I take my magnet, I figure out where I want to put it. I don't want my magnet to be too close to the edge because I want my pattern paper to be able to be sealed all the way around it. And sometimes, depending on what size chipboard you're going to use, the magnet may be too thick and it might stick up a little bit, and then that'll raise up your pattern paper and you'll be able to see it underneath. So what I do is I put my magnet where I want it to be, kind of in from the edge, and then I trace around the magnet. And then don't panic because you haven't put down your pattern paper yet. You're going to cut. So first thing I'm going to do is, I've already traced right where that one's going to go. I put a little bit of tape on the end of the magnet. I close the book to where I want it to be. Now it's attached to the other side, and I'm going to trace the whole magnet over there. And then I'm going to take my little knife, and I'm showing you there that the magnet's kind of thick, and I don't want it sticking up. I want it to be flush. So I'm going to take my little craft knife and I'm going to cut away the circle where the magnet is going to sit. And depending on what you're using, you might have to cut through a couple of layers to get down. And even if you go all the way through to the other side, by mistake, you make a mistake, it doesn't matter because you haven't put down your pattern paper yet. Your magnet's just going to sit right inside that hole, and you're going to cover it on both sides with pattern paper. So I didn't go all the way through, but I have in the past, and it hasn't made any difference whatsoever. So I'm going to put a little bit of tacky glue, make sure that I'm attaching the right side, because if you don't, they're not going to attach to each other, they're going to repel each other. So you want to make sure they're facing the right way. And then I take my score tape and I just lay it right over the top, but don't undo the protective backing on your score tape until you're ready to put down your pattern paper. And then that'll just hold your magnet there while it dries. I'm making sure, double making sure that it's facing in the right direction, the magnet, because I have done it before where I put it in backwards and had to rip the whole thing apart. I'm going to put down my score tape again right over the top, leaving the protective backing on, and there's the book ready to go. So now all we got to do now is wait for the kit to come from Simon Says Stamp. Here's a little preview of what I'm going to do with the front cover. I love that kind of snowy, windy background. And then inside of this paper pack, I saw this little thing right here. Isn't that just perfect? I think that will be absolutely perfect for the front of our book. So I know that the chipboard is coming, and those pieces are on the chipboard pack. So those are the pieces I'm going to be using for my cover. So yeah, stay tuned for part 2. It'll be here pretty soon, hopefully, when the kit comes, and we will get to decorating. I hope you guys have a fabulous day, and I will see you again real soon. Bye!